All right, let's just jump right in. Everybody loves a good superhero origin story, right? You know that moment an ordinary person finds out they have some kind of extraordinary power? Well, what if I told you that you, yes, you, have an origin story just like that? A hidden power you've been using your entire life without even realizing it. We're about to uncover that power, look at its source code, and figure out how you can start wielding it consciously. I want you to really think about this for a second. What if your reality, everything you see and feel, actually has a source code? A single, simple repeating pattern that runs everything, from the tiniest atoms to your own complex thoughts. A code that once you see it, completely changes the game. And here's the secret. Your greatest power isn't about lifting cars or flying. It's something much quieter. But honestly, it's way more powerful. It lives in that tiny little gap, the space between what happens to you and how you react to it. It is the power of interpretation. That's it. That's the control panel for your entire reality. So are you ready to see how deep this rabbit hole goes? We are about to pull back the curtain on this secret code, this fundamental operating system that doesn't just run our minds. It runs, well, pretty much everything. Okay, so it has a fancy name, the Contextual Feedback Model, or CFM. But don't let the name intimidate you because the idea itself is incredibly simple. It's just a feedback loop. A loop that lets any system, whether it's a single cell or an entire society, to learn, to adapt, and to grow. It's basically the blueprint for how things get smarter over time. It's really just a simple four-step dance. First, you get an input, some piece of information from the world. Second, your mind runs it through an interpretation layer, right? Your memories, your beliefs, how you're feeling that day. Third, you produce an output, an action, a word, a thought. And fourth, and this is the absolute key, that output creates feedback, which updates your internal state, getting you ready for the next loop. This is literally how we learn anything. And that's the magic right there. That simple little process is how memory is born. It's the reason our behavior isn't just a bunch of random chaos. Every single experience we have refines our interpretation filter, making us just a little bit more adapted with every single cycle. Now, here's where things get really wild. We tend to think of ourselves as this single, unified I that's kind of sitting behind our eyes, pulling the levers. But the truth is so much more spectacular than that. You know, in computer science, you can make a system more powerful in two ways. You can scale vertically, just make one computer bigger and faster, or you can scale horizontally by networking lots of smaller computers together. We tend to think of ourselves as vertically scaled, one big I in charge. But we're not. We are horizontally scaled. You're not one single hero, you're an entire symphony. Just think about it. You are trillions of individual cells, all running their own tiny feedback loops. Your networks of neurons firing in complex patterns. Your hormones and tissues all negotiating and signaling each other. There is no single boss in a command center. That feeling of I, that's the music. It's the harmony that emerges from this massive, incredible collaboration. And this pattern just keeps going. If you zoom out from yourself, you realize that we are like the individual cells in a much larger system, humanity. Our cultures, our languages, our societies, they all operate on the exact same loop. The architecture never changes. All that changes is the level of zoom. Okay, so this pattern is literally everywhere. That's cool, but what does it actually mean for you, for your life? Well, this is where we get to the superpowers. Because once you understand this architecture, you can start to master your own inner world. First things first, we have to look at the software that's running in our heads. And I'm talking about memes. No, not the funny cat pictures, but the original scientific idea. Memes as units of culture. They're ideas, phrases, stories, and they are literally the software that programs our interpretation layer, usually without us even noticing. Take a really simple phrase, one we all know, like egg on your face. Now, when you hear that, you're not just processing the sound of the words. That simple phrase instantly downloads a whole package of information into your brain, right? You get a feeling of embarrassment, you get a visual of public failure. It's a piece of cultural code. So your first superpower is developing X-ray vision for this code. When you start to see these reactions as programmed memes instead of objective reality, you can finally see your own biases. You can question your automatic programming. And that leads us right to the next power. And it's all about understanding a crucial difference, the difference between pain and suffering. See, pain, that's just an input. It's a raw, neutral signal from your body. But suffering? Suffering is the interpretation. It's the story you tell yourself about the pain. This is awful. It's never going to end. Why is this happening to me? And realizing that unlocks your second superpower, the power to reframe. Look, you might not be able to stop the input, the pain, but you absolutely have control over the interpretation. You can choose to tell a different story about it. And when you change the story, you fundamentally change the experience of suffering itself. That's real power. So let's connect the dots. When you control your interpretation, you control your output. And it's your output that creates the feedback that literally shapes the world around you. This is your third and maybe most profound superpower. You become the architect of your world. By consciously choosing how you interpret things, you actively sculpt the reality that responds back to you. All right, let's bring all of this home. Because understanding this stuff isn't just a cool mental exercise. It's really about stepping into a brand new identity, one that finally recognizes your true role in this whole universe. Just look at the full scale of it. This exact same feedback loop, this same dance of interpretation, it's happening at every single level of existence. From a single photon interacting based on its energy, to a cell adapting with biochemical feedback, all the way up to a brain using memory, or an entire culture making sense of its history. It's one single, unified, resonant pattern. And this, right here, this is the ultimate perspective shift. You aren't just some passive observer watching the universe happen from the sidelines. You're not a ghost driving a machine. This quote says it all. You are one of the ways the universe resonates with itself. You are a living, breathing part of this cosmic feedback loop. Just let that sink in for a minute. You are not just a person who uses this source code to get by. In the most literal sense possible, you are the source code. You are a living, breathing expression of this resonance fractal. That is your real origin story. So, the hero's journey is officially yours now. You've seen the hidden architecture of reality, you know the source of your own power. So the only question left is the one every hero has to answer at the end of their origin story. Now that you know the source code, what kind of world are you going to create?